What's up, everybody? The Scene Snob Mick Manhattan here. Happy Friday the 13th, and this is the Scene Snob Reviews, and I'm, of course, continuing on my journey of watching The Mandalorian. And this is the episode 6, The Prisoner review. And let me tell you, this isn't my favorite episode, but the show is getting better and better. And that's hard to say because from the first episode, it was just a fantastic show, and they've given us so much in terms of Easter eggs, and it's a true Star Wars story, with completely original characters, which is just fantastic. So if you haven't watched it yet, I really suggest just diving right in and watching all these episodes. But this episode was one of the most fun and one of my favorites. And, of course, I know a lot of people have, and I have been too, kind of barking about how this is a Western themed show. And of course, that's how they shoot it. And the storyline is very similar to that. And this was very, very much the same. And, in the true sense of the genre. And this episode finds the Mandalorian teaming up with a band of mercenaries. Some he's worked with in the past that they seem to have kind of a tenuous relationship, and some are brand new. One of them is played by Bill Burr, which is one of my favorite comedians, so that was cool to see him. And having just watched Breaking Bad again and seeing him, remembering he was in that, he played Cal in that, and now he's in this as the leader of the mercenary group, was pretty cool. And he fit. It's funny because you have that Boston accent and just kind of his gruff demeanor, and he is not a Star Wars guy. So, but he came out swinging. And he gave a great portrayal in it. But this is an isolated show that, it's contained. It doesn't really further along the overarching story at all. But it was just so much fun to watch, especially with only 2 episodes left. Anyway, these band of mercenaries they basically need the Razor's Crest, and so they bring him on as an extra gun so he can make some extra money. And they're going to break a prisoner out of a rebel prison ship. And so cool. So they go in, they have to make a certain type of warp jump. Yeah, they have to make a certain type of jump, and only Razor's Crest can do it. Or not that only the Razor's Crest can do it, but because they have a droid that's flying it. It's more that the Razor's Crest is an older ship, and it's neither detectable by Imperial ships or Rebel ships. So that made it easier for them to, with that ship, it made it easier for them to get there, break into the prison. So that was supposed to be only run by droids. So you get this whole thing. You have a very ominous feel from the group that, they don't like the Mandalorian, and, they show it. So going forward, they break into the prison. Everything seems to be going to plan. Then they find out that there is somebody working on the ship, not a droid. And Mandalorian is very much against killing him. So, and of course, things turn for the worse. So going that route, they turn on the Mandalorian, of course. But they don't until they release the prisoner, and you find out it's the brother of one of the other mercenaries that knew the Mandalorian. And they throw the Mandalorian into his cell and kind of leave him there. And that's when things change. That's when the whole shift happens. It turns into like this. It goes from this prison break movie to almost like a horror movie in a way. And it was shot beautifully. And when the Mandalorian finally breaks out of his cell, and it's his job to go, now he realizes he has to go stop all of them. The way he does it is perfect. And I really don't want to give that away, because it's just like there's shots in it that, like, where it's dark and you see the Mandalorian like kind of like stalking them in the background, like very much like a Michael Myers-esque type feel. And it's beautiful. It goes to show you just how good the Mandalorian is, just how good of a warrior he is. And if anything, if it advanced anything in the story, it's just to tell you that more. So once we get there, it's anybody who goes up against him and bests him has to be 10 times as good, so I'm excited to see where this goes. But it was just a beautiful episode, and it comes out handled perfectly. Again, I don't want to give away the ending, but the Mandalorian stops them all, delivers the prisoner, gets the money, and then the tables have been turned on everybody. So, but he leaves all of them alive, which is beautiful. I thought, there were some things like I kind of questioned, like, well, if you have this big team, granted you're in a prison, but like, why wouldn't you just carbonite freeze them? But it makes sense in how they did it, and I really enjoyed it. And so he gets his money and then he takes off, but we get some very cool things. We get the old uniforms, the rebel security uniforms, which they comment on, and it's beautiful. And it makes sense, especially when they're commenting on it. It's like, oh yeah, look at his shoes, they match his belt. Like, you'll know what I mean when you see it, or the egghead comment, or things like the X-wings showing up. It's so subtle and simple, but like the X-wing is the go-to security force starship. So when it shows up, you're just like, oh man, it's like when Kit shows up. If Kit showed up on a TV show or something, and from Knight Rider, it's like, it's just that iconic. So when you have some X-wings show up, it was a beautiful piece of work, and awesome to see. So I'm so anxious to see these next two episodes. But this episode was just like I said, it was an isolated episode that introduced you to new characters. They may pop up in the future. I wouldn't be surprised if they do. And if they do, it'll be cool to see them. Kind of see how this all plays out. But I'm in awe of this episode because it's so different. Like, each episode kind of seems familiar after you watch the last one. You're like, all right, these all kind of work in line together. But then this episode, it just seems so different, especially when it goes with like that horror vibe. And I love being a horror fan. I loved it. And I love that they made the Mandalorian the star of the show, the focus, the focal point, not the villain, but almost like the slasher in this. And he, of course, is still the good man that he is. But it was beautiful. And you have some great scenes, of course, with Baby Yoda in there. Very funny, very cute. And it works. It is when he's on there, everything just still works. Like, it doesn't take away from the grown-up feel of the show. It just adds to it. It adds like a cute, funny little scenes here and there that make sense. And man, Jon Favreau knocked it out of the park with all of the directors he chose to do this. And I can't wait to see where else this goes. But this was a fantastic episode. I just needed to come on and talk about it a bit. I'm watching it with my kid, and he is gushing over this show. He couldn't not believe it, and he even felt that different vibe, because he'll watch horror movies with me sometimes, and he was like, "This is kind of scary, but I love it." And but he got it, and it made sense. And how, like, after they turned the tables on the Mandalorian, when the Mandalorian escaped, he showed them who he is, and it was just fantastic. But with that being said, I want to know what you guys think. Comment or message me. Let's talk about it. I love this show. I love what it's doing for Star Wars. Next week we have The Rise of Skywalker coming out, so get excited. Like, let's see what happens here. So with that being said, let's talk more about it. We got I am on Instagram and Twitter at the Scene Snob. You can like my page and talk to me through the Scene Snobs on Facebook and on YouTube, the Scene Snobs YouTube channel. You can subscribe and comment on anything. So look forward to hearing from you guys. I'm very excited for next week's episode, and especially the Rise of Skywalker after that. So yeah, may the Force be with you.